Hey, hi students, how are you all? Today we are going to see the third part of Russian Revolution. So till here we have discussed about the condition in Russia or in the Europe, not in Russia actually. We have seen the condition of Europe, how in Europe socialism is spreading, how the people are talking about capitalism, socialism, communism. We also have seen the difference between communism and socialism. Then we talked about three philosophers, those who were talking about socialism a lot. They were Louis Blanc, then Owen, and Frederick Engels and Karl Marx, isn't it? So till here, I am sure about it that you must have understood what is socialism is, what is the communism, and what is capitalism. What is the basic difference in all these three ideologies that you must be knowing here till here. Okay. Now, if you want to understand the Russian Revolution, then you will come to know it very easily. So first of all, we will try to understand the geography of Russia. Here you can see the map of Europe. Okay, these were the powers which were active, or we can say belligerent, in First World War. Germany, Russian Empire, then as you know very well, France, Russian Empire, then these two countries, they were in one side, they were called allies. Okay, and these were the central powers: Germany, Austria Hungary, okay, and Turkey, yes. Okay, Ottoman Empire. So in this way, First World War was being fought among these countries. Now, let's talk about Nicholas II. Okay, Nicholas II, Tsar Nicholas, the king of Russia, they are called Tsars. Okay, so Nicholas II was Tsar at that time. He was coronated in 1896 when his father Alexander III died. Then he became the king, or we can say Tsar of Russia. So before starting this lesson, you must know something about Nicholas. So first we'll listen about him and then we'll go forward. जब हम निकोलस के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं तो सबसे पहले आपके कुछ बातें आपको क्लियर होनी चाहिए। निकोलस टू ये रोमानोव डायनास्टी में से एक राजा था। रोमानोव डायनास्टी 1613 से रशिया के ऊपर राज कर रही थी, और मतलब कंटिन्यूअसली 300 साल तक इस डायनास्टी ने रशिया के ऊपर राज किया है। उसमें से निकोलस टू ये लास्ट जार प्रूव हुआ रशिया का, क्योंकि डेफिनेटली जार ने इतने कुछ बड़े कारनामे नहीं किए जिसकी वजह से उसको मार दिया गया, उसके फैमिली को मार दिया गया। लेकिन उसके जो एंसेस्टर्स थे उनकी भी बहुत सारी गलतियां ऐसी थी। लेकिन जैसे आपको पता है कि कभी भी रिवॉल्यूशन एक साथ एक दिन में नहीं होता है, उसके लिए बहुत साल लगते हैं। तो इतने सालों का जो गुस्सा है वो सारा टूट पड़ता है निकोलस टू के ऊपर। ओके, तो ऐसा उसने क्या किया था, चलो इसके बारे में पहले हम कुछ बातें जानेंगे। तब आगे जाके आपको समझ में आएगा कि रशियन रिवॉल्यूशन में लोगों को जार के बारे में इतना गुस्सा क्यों था। तो हम पूरे बैक हिस्ट्री में तो नहीं जाएंगे, लेकिन निकोलस ने कौन कौन सी बातें ऐसी की उसके बारे में हम समझने की कोशिश करते हैं। सबसे पहली बात, 1896 में जब निकोलस का कोरोनेशन हो रहा था, उस वक्त बहुत सारे लोगों को उसके कोरोनेशन के लिए इनवाइट किया गया। इस इनविटेशन में जितने एंटीसिपेटेड लोग थे उससे ज्यादा बहुत सारे लोग आ जाते हैं, और इसकी वजह से वहां पे लोगों का क्रशिंग हो जाता है, जिसमें ऑलमोस्ट 1300 लोग मर जाते हैं। ये प्रूव करता है कि उस जमाने में जो एरिस्टोक्रेसी थी राजा की, उनमें कितना पुअर मैनेजमेंट था। इस पुअर मैनेजमेंट की वजह से इतने सारे लोग मर जाते हैं, और फिर भी इसके बावजूद इसको जस्ट इग्नोर किया जाता है। और उस वक्त के एरिस्टोक्रेट वो तो ऐसा कहते हैं कि चलो आप एक राजा बने हो तो राजा के लिए इतने सारे लोगों की आहुति बलिदान मिल गया, ऐसा समझ के वो छोड़ देते हैं इस बात को। लेकिन लोगों में इसके बारे में गुस्सा पनप रहा है। इस इंसिडेंट की वजह से निकोलस के बारे में लोग कहते हैं दैट ब्लडी निकोलस, उसके बारे में कहा जाता है ब्लडी निकोलस। उसके बाद आ, उसकी वाइफ थी जिसका नाम था अलेक्जेंड्रीना। शी वॉज फ्रॉम जर्मन एथनिसिटी, वो एक जर्मन थी। ओके, तो आगे जाने के आगे उस जमाने में जार के लिए दो बातें सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट हुआ करती थी। एक, उसको लड़का होना चाहिए। ओके, तो लड़का होना, क्योंकि आगे जाके ये डायनेस्टी अगर टिकानी है, रोमानो डायनेस्टी या कोई भी, तो उसके लिए हेयर होना चाहिए, वंश होना चाहिए, तो लड़का होगा। तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली निकोलस टू को चार पहली लड़कियां होती है और पांचवा उसे लड़का होता है जिसका नाम होता है अलेक्जी। ओके, तो जो सबसे छोटा होता है, और अगेन अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये एलेक्सी हेमोफिलियक होता है। मतलब जैसे आपको पता होगा हेमोफिलिया, हेमोफिलिया नाम का एक डिसीज है जिसमें अगर आपको थोड़ा सा भी जख्म हो जाता है तो उसमें से खून बहना स्टार्ट हो जाता है, और ये खून बहुत देर तक रुकता ही नहीं है, तो उसमें डेथ होने की भी संभावना होती है। तो बहुत सारे डॉक्टर ने ये भी बात बता दी थी कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा ये 25-22 साल तक जी सकता है। तो ये एक सबसे बड़ा टेंशन था, और अगर ये बात बाहर फैल गई, लोगों में फैल गई, तो लोग रिवॉल्ट करेंगे और हमें ये राजगद्दी छोड़ देनी होगी, एब्डिकेट किया जाएगा हमें। इस डर की वजह से वो इसको छुपा के रखते हैं। बस उनके जो सराउंडिंग के और जो ऐसे भरोसेमंद लोग हैं, बस उनको ये बात पता होती है। ऐसे कंडीशन में ग्रिगोरी रास्पुतीन नाम का एक बंदा साइबेरिया से ट्रैवल करके यहाँ पे आता है, रशिया में आता है, और वो ये दावा करता है कि वो हीमोफिलिक जो अपना अलेक्सी है उसको बचा सकता है। और वो ऐसा भी दावा करता है कि उसके पास कुछ मैजिक है, चार्मिंग पावर्स है, जिसकी बदौलत वो इसे बचा सकता है। और ऑफ कोर्स एक्चुअली ग्रिगोरी के पास लोगों का माइंड पढ़ना, इसके लिए वो बहुत फेमस था। उसको ये टैलेंट था उसके पास कि लोगों को शांत करना, उनकी तकलीफें समझना, और तकलीफें समझने के बाद उनको सॉल्यूशन देना। उसके इस टैलेंट की वजह से वो रॉयल फैमिलीज में बहुत फेमस था। तो वो एलेक्सी को जब उसको कोई भी जख्म हो जाता है तो उसके एक्साइटमेंट को वो रोकता है, और इसकी वजह से उसका खून बहना रुक जाता है। तो इसलिए रास्पुतिन जो है अलेक्जेंड्रिना के बहुत करीब आता है, और अलेक्जेंड्रिना जो है वो भी बहुत एक धार्मिक औरत है। इसलिए उस जमाने में अलेक्जेंड्रिना और रास्पुतिन, इनके अफेयर के बारे में भी बहुत सारा डिस्कशन हो रहा था पूरे रशिया में। बहुत सारे लोगों ने, और ऑर्थोडॉक्सी जो चर्च था, उन्होंने रास्पुतीन के खिलाफ जाने के लिए कुछ पॉम्पलेट्स भी प्रिंट किए थे, जिसमें इस अफेयर के बारे में बहुत सारे पिक्चर्स दिए गए थे, अगली पिक्चर्स अबाउट अलेक्जेंड्रिना एंड रास्पुतीन। तो एक रीजन था। बाद में जापान के साथ जार निको मतलब रशिया की लड़ाई होती है, उसमें रशिया हार जाता है 1905 में। अभी यहाँ पे रिवॉल्यूशन स्टार्ट हो जाता है। इंसिडेंट हुआ ऐसे, चलो इसके बारे में अभी हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं। और ऐसे बहुत सारे इंसिडेंट हैं जो अभी होने वाली है, ठीक है। तो विंटर पैलेस है ये, जो कि मॉस्को में था, ठीक है। चलो सॉरी, सेंट पीटर्सबर्ग में था। ओके, तो ये ग्रेट पीटर जो है उन्होंने बांधा था। वहां पे एक बहुत बड़ा पीटर्सबर्ग में वो बनाते हैं, इसलिए इसको विंटर पैलेस ऐसा नाम दिया जाता है। और पीटर्सबर्ग इस सिटी को इसलिए नाम दिया गया था क्योंकि पीटर नाम का एक, पीटर द ग्रेट आपने नाम सुना होगा शायद, बहुत बड़े किंग हो गए रोमानो डायनेस्टी में, उनके नाम से ये नाम दिया गया। तो ये विंटर पैलेस में फोटो है इनका। ओके, तो अभी 1905 में रशिया में रिवॉल्यूशन होने वाला है। तो उसके पीछे रीजन समझने के लिए सबसे पहले हम रशिया की हम ज्योग्राफी समझ रहे थे। ओके, तो ये मॉस्को है और उसके सराउंडिंग में इतने सारे कंट्रीज है, फिनलैंड, पोलैंड, यूक्रेन, बेलारूस, लाटविया, लिथुआनिया, इस्टोनिया। सो दीज मेनी कंट्रीज आर देयर। तो रशियन एम्पायर आज भी हमें जैसे पता है कि रशिया एक बहुत बड़ा कंट्री है, isn't it? So this is the ranking of Russia is first in terms of area in the world, isn't it? So at that time it was even bigger. The Russia that exists today, at that time it was bigger than this. Okay, so these many countries were just connected with Russia. Then let's talk about the composition of society. In Russia, maximum people, they were from Russian Orthodox society. means when the Constantinople it was captured by Ottoman Empire, which was the last center of Orthodox Christianity. After that, it was considered that Moscow is the third. Okay, Byzantine Empire was there. You will ask me, sir, which was first then? You just search about it. Okay, but second, it was Ottoman Empire, Constantinople, and third, the people were talking that it is Moscow, that is Russia, because in Russia, maximum people they had adopted Orthodox Christianity. In the Russia only, Catholics, Protestant, Muslims, and Buddhists were also there. So this was the composition of society in Russian society. Then let's talk about the economy of Russia. Maximum people they were dependent upon agriculture. You can see 85% people they are based upon agriculture. Then contemporary countries, if we talk about, then you will come to know that France 40%, Germany 50%, this much population they were dependent upon agriculture and other population industries, business, trade, and business ventures and enterprise. But 85% people in Russia they were dependent upon agriculture. That's why in industrial development, Russia was not that much developed. It was lagging behind in European powers. Russia was a major exporter of grain at that time. So this was about agriculture. Let's talk about industries now. In Russia, till 1890, many factories were set up because France was new ally of Russia. So France was investing in Russia. So many factories which were set up in Russia, they were owned by France itself. Then expansion of railway and foreign investment. Working hours there in industries, there was a demand of workers that the working hours should be decreased because they were 15, somewhere 12, somewhere 10. These many hours, these workers, they had to spend in factories. Then in Russia, because of industries are investing, so the coal production was doubled and iron and steel was quadrupled. This much growth was there in the industries because the workers, those who were earlier peasants, because of this industrialization, these peasants got converted into workers. So they are working in these factories, but the working conditions are poor, the working hours are very long, and the wages that they are getting they are very less, and the working facilities are also very poor. But because of necessity or because of serfdom, actually before Nicholas only this serfdom was abolished, okay, by his grandfather. Okay, so in industries these workers are working, and St. Petersburg and Moscow they were the center of industrialization. So the workers are working in the factories, they are giving profit to the owner, but there was no increment in their salaries. There was no improvement in their working condition, and the working hours also were not reduced. So there was kind of unrest among these workers. Then there were also types of workers. Some workers were there those who had strong links with villages. Though they are working in cities in urban area, they were having strong links with rural life because they had their farm or their family worked there. Then some workers they were just settled in cities permanently. Then metal workers were kind of aristocrats. Means in workers also, those who are working in metal factory, they were called, mean not called actually, but they were having dignity, more honor than the other workers, those who are working in other factories. So metal workers, they were kind of aristocrats in working society, and 31% of the workers they were also means they were women. In my last lecture I had shown you one picture from London. Okay, now in textile industry and metal industry there were revolts. What were the reasons behind it? Already I have told you many times. Working hours, working facilities, then no improvement in working facilities and payment. Okay, so there were strikes in textile industry, metal industry. 1902, 1896, 97, there were strikes. Peasants worked hard, more, but owned by the nobility, Tsar, and Orthodox Church. Or these factories, they were owned by the nobility, Tsar, and Orthodox Church. So the people, they were not happy with the nobility. Actually, in France, in French Revolution, the people, they were unhappy with the church, not that much with the nobility. But in Russia, the people were unhappy completely with nobility. Okay, so there was a clash between nobility and peasants. Peasants had no respect for nobility, and peasants wanted that the lands of nobles should be distributed among the people, among the peasants. And if they refused to pay the rent, even murdered landlords. Okay, so these activities, this rage, you can see it's spreading in the Europe, in the Russia. So in 1905, exactly what happens, that we are going to talk now. Okay, it was spreading in Russia. Okay, so here you can see the working conditions of the people. You can see how poor conditions are there. In one dormitories, they are eating, and see the facilities. So figure point 5, unemployed peasants in pre-war St. Petersburg. Many survived by eating a charitable kitchens and living in poor houses. Workers sleeping in bunkers in a dormitory in a pre-revolutionary Russia. They slept, they slept in shifts and could not keep their families with them. Only those who are workers, they will live here. They can't keep their families with them. And in shift, they have to sleep. Means just imagine how miserable condition must be there. They have to work for 15 hours. After working, of course, they are just tired. So they will spend all other hours in sleeping away. Means they have only three jobs in their life: sleeping, eating, and working. Nothing else. No kind of enjoyment. So from this you will understand how much miserable condition was there in Russia. Then there was a system called Mir commune system in, sorry, by mistake I have written here, it's a Russia. Mir commune system in Russia. In Russia, in Russian history, a self-governing community of peasant households that elected its own officials and controlled local forest, fisheries, hunting grounds, and vacant lands. They themselves made their own government. There were small groups called Mir commune. They came together. Means this system was prevalent in Russia. Already it existent in Russia. So these people, they took care of forest, fisheries altogether. To make taxes imposed on its members more equitable, the Mir assumed communal control of communities' arable land and periodically redistributed it among the households. One after another, the commune or the family will take control of that land and will cultivate it. Okay, so this in this way, very mutually, it was done in Russia. From 1720 it was going on. Okay, so in this way this system was prevalent in Russia. So here there is a one source I have for you. You can read it. Actually, he was socialist worker of that time, gives a description of how meetings were organized. Alexander Shalapinikov. Okay, so you just read it and study about it. And so next part of this lesson we will see in our next lecture. So till then, I expect that you will study about Mir system, that is commune system in Russia, how it was done, what was the method to do that. So get more and more details about it. Then you will come to know that what was the thinking and why the people around the world, and why all the socialist people around the world, that they are saying that why Russia is perfect for socialism. You will come to know what is the reason behind this statement and why Russia fits socialism, and how Russia is going to adopt communism. So think about it, search about it, talk about it, and discuss with your friends and whoever you think can give you information about it. Okay, so till my next lecture, thank you so much. Have a nice day. See you in next lecture.